I still feel that way sometimes. Playing this comparison game of looking at like other retreat centers and being like, wow, it's clear, these people started out with, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. You can tell this place was built all at once. And that's beautiful. If someone has the ability to do that, wonderful. I wish that we did. But we don't, and we still had these desires. So we just worked with what we had. So like we built the cabin and we started renting that out, which was an amazing source of income to where we could stay here and keep building.
This episode kicks off the Creative Wealth Building series, where I am interviewing entrepreneurs that have taken a creative path to building wealth and living their lives. All of them have created successful money-making businesses that align with their passions and their values. In today's episode, I am interviewing Marlena Jarjoura, who is a self-made entrepreneur and the founder of Hill Country Nature Retreat Center. Marlena has a background in special education, but her path shifted from teaching children to co-creating an off-grid oasis with her husband in the Texas Hill Country. For the past 7 years, they have lived off-grid, crafting their homestead, building rental properties, and creating a retreat center made mostly out of reclaimed and recycled materials. This episode, you're gonna learn Marlena's path from moving from Austin to her land in the Hill Country to now owning and operating an off-grid sustainable retreat center. This episode, we're diving into the financials, the work that her and her husband Eugene have done. You are gonna love this episode. If without further ado, let's dive in. Marlena Jarjoura, welcome to the Holistic Money Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Whitney.
No, I'm so happy to have you here today. How did Hill Country Nature Retreat Center come to be?
Okay, it's a very roundabout story, so it'll maybe all make sense in the end. We'll see. So I met Eugene, my partner, who we have built this whole thing ourselves. I met him in 2016. And when I met him, I lived in Austin at the time, and he lived like half time in Austin and then half the time out here in Waco, Texas, like right outside of Austin where we are. He was like, I live in a shack in the woods. And I was like, okay, this could be interesting. I really like you. Because at the time I had an apartment in Austin, a studio that I was renting that I really couldn't afford. So I was illegally listing it on Airbnb on the weekends. And I would go camp. I would stay at friends.
I totally did that too, by the way.
Yeah, it worked for a time, and then they totally caught me, and they were like, "Take your listing down." And I was like, "Whatever." But for a while it worked. So I was already kind of like camping out in nature. So he was like, I live in a shack in the woods, which wasn't a shack. It was this adorable little cabin that is our home. I think his language wasn't quite right. But he said he lived out here, and I was very intrigued. So we fell in love really quickly, and I pretty much moved out here, right after that. That was around the same time that my apartment was like, quit listing your place. So I said, okay, let's transition. And when I had met him, I was very interested in living on the land. And I had been a teacher in Austin. I was a special ed teacher. That's what I went to school for. And I did that for a couple of years and decided, this is not the life for me. Going to the same place Monday to Friday, being in this classroom, I just felt really, really trapped. And I was like, I can't do this. I was hyperventilating in my classroom, and I would call my parents and be like, is this what life is? And they were like, you'll get used to it. And I never did. And I was like, I'm sorry. I'm not this kind of person. I just want to play outside all day. I can't do this. So and this is all right before I met Eugene, or a little bit before I met him. So I'm kind of going back a little. So I quit my teaching job, and I started WOOFing, which is Worldwide Organization of Organic Farmers, or something like that. And you can live on a farm, and you work on this farm for room and board. And it's just a way to get experience. And so I said, you know what? I don't want to be a teacher. I really want to live on the land. Let me try this. Let me see if I even like to be in nature that much. Am I even going to like this kind of lifestyle that I think I want for myself? And so I did that in a few farms around Austin. I didn't have to travel far for it. And I loved it. So then back to what I was just saying, I had this apartment in Austin because I was just at this point in life where I didn't really know what was next. So farming, Austin, met Eugene, cabin in the woods. So came out here, and then that's when I feel like my life as it is now, like the pieces started getting put into place and it just started unfolding and blossoming. And so I got out here and he had this little unfinished one-room cabin, and there was no electricity and no running water, and it was very romantic at the time. We would like light candles at night, and there was no shower, so we would like pour water on each other outside and scrub each other, and it was like a very romantic time for like a new love, right? But then like time started passing and I was like, I kind of need to be able to charge my phone, and like I like the candles, but like it'd be nice to be able to read in the evening. A shower would be nice. So he had a little bit of money from his job and I had some savings from when I was teaching, and we just slowly, got a few solar panels, and, now we had lights to read with and use at night, and we had enough power to charge our phones, and very little, but it was enough at the time.
How long did it take for you to go from a cabin out in the woods, no electricity, no plumbing, to solar panels and plumbing and running water and a shower? And now it sounds like you all had a fully functioning cabin.
Yeah, it didn't take too long. Like I moved out here in the summer of 2016, and I remember it was October that we got our little solar panels. And then it was January that we built our bedroom. So it was maybe like 6 months or so. And that was like our house at a level. We've still done a lot over the past 7 years. That was 7 years ago. But it took maybe 6 months or so for us to have our bedroom and our kitchen and our bathroom and feel like, okay.
Did Eugene have any experience doing this stuff beforehand, or were you all both just like, all right, let's figure out how to make all this happen? Or had he done this before?
He had a little bit of building experience. He had worked as an apprentice for a builder in town. So he had, learned how to use power tools and use a measuring tape and that sort of thing. So he wasn't coming into it with 0% experience. But as far as like doing electrical work and plumbing and all that, learning solar power, that was a huge, and still is a learning curve. He had an old friend that knew how to run solar, knew how to build the systems and all that lived in California. So they had a few phone calls, and he helped us kind of understand what we need. And it's come a long way since then. Now it feels like we have the ability to just look it up online, and there's so many people that have so many great resources that you really can start with zero knowledge and get your questions answered. There's people that want to help you. You could say, I have no idea how to build a solar system, and they will like walk you through every step of it. But it's been a huge learning process with like lots and lots of mistakes and do-overs. So we've learned a lot along the way. So we had our cabin, and then we built our Airbnb cabin, which was originally just going to be a little guest house because I had my family that liked to come out and stay, or that wanted to come out and stay, but they were like sleeping on our sofa bed in our living room. And I was like, okay, we need somewhere else for, people to come stay when they come out here. So let's build like a little tiny little guest house, just a little sleeping quarters. And then we started building it, and we were like, well, maybe we should have like a little kitchen, because I don't want them in my kitchen all the time. They need to be able to make their breakfasts and stuff. And then we were like, well, look, I think we have room. We can fit a little bathroom in here, right? Like they need to take their own shower over there. And then it started getting like really cute. And I already had that little bit of experience with Airbnb. And I was like, okay, let's try this. Like, family can come stay, but let's just try to list it and see what happens. And it was like right before COVID that we listed the cabin, and it kind of took off from there.
I love this story. I love how simple it feels. When I listen to you talk about this, it's like, oh, that sounds more doable, because I think when people think of starting a nature retreat center, for example, they think to themselves, oh, I need to have hundreds of thousands of dollars, or I need to have a bunch of different skills. And really, you and Eugene just had this mindset, and we can create this space, because most people don't think that way. Can you tell me a little bit about how you and Eugene think about these kinds of projects that allowed you to just get out there and be like, let's build a bathroom?
I still feel that way sometimes. I playing this comparison game of looking at like other retreat centers and being like, wow, it's clear, these people started out with, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. You can tell this place was built all at once. And that's beautiful. If someone has the ability to do that, wonderful. I wish that we did, but we don't. And we still had these desires. So we just worked with what we had. I think both of us came from backgrounds where our parents were, frugal and had to be. And I think also it kind of makes the process less overwhelming to think of it as just building blocks or like completing a puzzle, right? It's like, unless you have all the money in the world, it's not going to happen all at once. And so just take like one step at a time. So, just today, I said that a few times and like, to us about something we're working on. I was like, just one step at a time. Like, don't look so far ahead, because then the overwhelm is just like, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to do it? But, we try to find things for free if possible, which we end up finding a lot of really good free stuff just on Facebook Marketplace, or, people at this point know what we're up to. So they'll call us or text us like, hey, do you want this thing? And not being super picky. It's like, yeah, if I could take all of our spaces and have all the money in the world and completely redo them, they might look a little different. But it's like, you know what? That chair will work. It's not like, if I could pick all the chairs in the world, I might not pick that chair, but that chair is cute enough for that corner, And so I think that's a lot of it, is like just being like easygoing with it and not being a perfectionist, It's like, everything changes and evolves, and especially being in like the hospitality business or whatever, it's like our guests inform us of a lot of things that we eventually do change. But it's like the cabin and the Airstream, they weren't perfect when we hit list on Airbnb, but whatever, they're listed. And now, we added some hammocks because one guest was like, this place needs some hammocks. And, we added this because someone else said that, and replacing things as we do have more money to get nicer things. And also like a lot of it is like looking, okay, because, honestly, just financially speaking, this place, we're not in any debt, but we're not very profitable. We pretty much break even. Pretty much everything we make each month goes right back into it. So sometimes it's like, ooh, we bought too many things for this month, so let's wait until the next purchase can go on this next credit card statement. And so it's a puzzle, but we like the challenge of it most of the time. It's exhausting too sometimes.
Absolutely. And I think that, there are some key values that you and Eugene have really brought into the retreat center through, it is the frugality, but it's also the fact that your property is completely sustainable. It's off grid. And I think that brings a certain level of charm. People really want to experience that kind of lifestyle, and people, and I those of you that are watching this episode on YouTube, you're seeing some pictures I'm showing you as Marlena is talking through, but those of you that are listening on the podcast, you may not be able to actually see Marlena's space, but I think this idea of, oh, that chair just is fine there, and oh, this will work here, it actually has enhanced the charm of your place. Because when I haven't been out yet, I definitely am going to come out, but the pictures that I've seen, everything I love the look and feel that you have put together. It's not scale Austin hotel perfection.
Yes.
It is off-grid sustainability in nature, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think, you're totally right. It's like making sure, like I said earlier, not comparing yourself to other people and being like, this is what I can offer. And the people that come out here are attracted to that. And that's the truth of it, is like people that are attracted to sustainability and being in a rural setting and being in nature and in a more rustic place. That's really the people that we get out here 99% of the time. So I think it's cool that our place sort of pulls in the people that have maybe similar values.
Absolutely. So let's talk financials. It sounds like a lot of what you have done so far has just been, has come from the money that you've made. So you make money and then you reinvest it back into the property. At any point, have you had to outside investors or outside debt to help you build this space, or did you all self-fund everything?
No, we haven't had any investors. We don't have any debt. This is Eugene's family's land, so we didn't buy the land. We don't own it. So that's a big piece of it that's very important. If we had tried to start out with my like little savings and Eugene's little monies, we wouldn't have been able to, purchase land to do this project. So we're super, super grateful for that privilege and that opportunity. His family does have the means to help. And this is sort of like becoming, in a way, like not the legacy of the family. I'm not going to go that far, but it's special to his family. It's a place where they can come out and see the progress. So for them, they are happy and willing to invest in it.
I have a question about how much money did it take for you to build that cabin?
The cabin was around $20,000. But another thing to keep in mind is that we don't hire any labor. So when you're building something, the labor is usually like 3 times the amount of materials or something. It's pretty up there. So when you're doing everything yourself, you can kind of keep that low. But I think it was around 20,000, and we've invested a little bit more into it. It didn't even have, like, when we first started out, the bathroom didn't even have a sink in it. So we built a sink.
And then, so that cabin cost $20,000, and you mentioned Eugene had also constructed that house, so he ended up getting a lot more free lumber, really, for some of the other builds. How much total do you think that you all have paid to build? You have your 3 Airbnbs, right? And then you have the workshop space, which, by the way, y'all, is so beautiful. I'm so excited to see this in person. How much would you say that all cost you to build?
Let's see. I don't know. The cabin, it was like 20,000. Our Airstream was maybe in the end 15,000. I think the workshop and studio were also maybe 20,000. I don't know the total. I probably should know the total, but I mean the treehouse, even with all of the reused lumber, was like probably at least 20,000, just because of everything else that goes into it, nails, screws, just everything.
Yeah, so we'll say $100,000 that you all have invested over the past 7 years, and also put so much of your own love and sweat and labor into this land. I'm sure it's been such a labor of love for y'all. How about the income? About how much per month are you making off of your rentals?
It varies month by month, but I'd say on average like $3,500 maybe. So not, that much. The Airstream hasn't done as well as we thought it would. We got real gung-ho because the cabin kind of exploded right after COVID. But I think the cabin has this better photo appeal, if that makes sense. It's like cabin, and it's this big, bright, airy room, and it's like, I think the Airstream, I don't know, I'm always wondering, like, why doesn't the Airstream do as well? Because people that have stayed at both, a lot of them like the Airstream better just because it's more private, it's got an outdoor shower. But I just think that when people are searching on Airbnb, it's like, it's an RV, So I just wonder, is it the filters that people are using that aren't sending them there as much, or what?
And that's where I feel like building your personal brand, like what you're doing on Instagram. Those of you that are on Instagram, make sure to follow Marlena and the Retreat Center, because not only does she have these Airbnbs out there, but you're also starting to do like classes and events, and there's so many neat things happening out there. But you're starting to really build a brand, and I think that's just one of the things that As more people come out, as people start to experience your space, you
Yes.
don't necessarily have to rely as much on Airbnb, because we're the same way. We have to rely so much on Airbnb. But Airbnb can change the algorithm tomorrow and decide, hey, they don't want to show the yurt anymore.
Yep.
So we're trying to also think about that for ourselves. How can we create more of a brand that people recognize outside of just Airbnb, and have our own website so people can go there to book as well?
Yeah, that's something that I've thought about a lot. I mean, what if Airbnb just imploded on itself? It's like I would be, in a pickle for sure. So I have really started in the past 6 months to a year, maybe a little bit less, maybe more like 6 months, trying to push like Hill Country Nature Retreat as a place where people can come and have their weddings and retreats and stuff. And finally this fall we have some retreats booked, and then we're already booking a couple of weddings for spring. And I told Eugene on our walk last night, I said, I think that it's going to become just this really slow little snowball. And I think for us and for me, it's like patience is really key, because it's like the goal of our lives is not to have a successful retreat center. The goal of our lives is to be content and happy and not stressed, right? So it's this like always this balance of like pushing, and then like, whoa, what is it that I actually desire in my everyday life? And it's really just chilling out and being relaxed and doing what I love to do. So I'm just always playing that game of like pushing it, but also like pushing it for a little bit whenever I feel like being out on social media and online, and then just letting those things be out there and just laying back for a while and then seeing like what might come from it. But I think once we start to get some events like the retreats we have coming up, maybe there will be one person in those retreats that they're like, ooh, I want to have a retreat out here, or ooh, I would love to get married out here, or whatever.
I love what you just said, saying that my goal is not to have a successful nature retreat center. My goal is to have a life that I love, that doesn't stress me out, and the abundance of all, and get to enjoy the abundance of my life. Love that, because it's so true. And the process to get there can require a lot of, like you said, frugality, and it can require a lot of decision making of, hey, instead of taking this money that we're making and going on that amazing vacation that we've been wanting to go on, we're going to use this and we're going to reinvest it back into the land, into our future. And I think that takes a lot of discipline that I see that a lot of people really struggle with. How have you and Eugene managed that?
I like that you're saying that and acknowledging that. It's like, oh, we are disciplined, because we, I guess the word is sacrifice, but it sounds kind of weird for some reason, but we don't take trips. I mean, we go to South Padre once a year just for maybe 2 days, 2 full days, but we don't travel. We don't spend much on ourselves. Like we're very here. It's almost like we don't have any children, and this is like a needy newborn or something. It almost feels like we're kind of are stuck here in a way. But we can tell that they're starting to like grow up a little bit, and we're starting to, get systems in place that allow us to leave and travel like maybe a little bit further. But yeah, it is a big sacrifice in that way.
Yeah, and I want to hear more. You tell me more about the sustainability component of your land, because the way that we have talked about it a lot of it has been through the financial lens, but I also just want to hear you talk about this as a value of your own and how you have incorporated sustainability into the retreat center.
Sustainability has always been a value of mine since I was little. Like, me and my sister started the first recycling club at our school where we grew up in Mississippi, and we were litter quitters, and like my mom just, anyways, that was just a big part of our lives growing up, was sustainability, turning the lights off, not running water when we were brushing our teeth, that sort of thing. But honestly, when we got out here, and that's important to Eugene as well, for sure, but the truth of it, in full transparency, is we had to be off grid. We had to have solar power because we couldn't afford to bring electricity up here. Because the electric pole, our driveway is a mile long. So the closest electric pole was, over a mile down the road, and it would have cost, $100,000 or something to bring power up here. So that's why we got, the solar panels. And then as far as rainwater goes, it just makes a lot of sense because out here, digging a well is super expensive and the water quality is really poor. It's very sulfury and very hard water out here. So everything just sort of fell into place sustainability-wise. So it was like a financial thing, but also a values thing. It's like using lumber that just would go into the dump. It's like painful for us, right? We've been building a lot lately out of fence wood. So in the cities, like in Austin, people are always replacing their, the fences in their backyard. And it's cedar wood, which will last forever, but, it kind of looks ugly and old after a while and people just want to upgrade. And the companies that replace these fences have to pay to take them to the dump. They have to pay to take this like good wood and throw it away. So it just feels really fulfilling to us to take things that still have so much life and use them out here. But I will say, we are about to connect to the grid through this neighborhood that came up a couple years ago. There was a neighborhood that borders our property now. And so a month or so ago, we were in the discussions of investing in another solar system because ours isn't big enough to power everything anymore. And our neighbor was like, have y'all thought about just connecting, getting connected to my pole? So we kind of looked into it, and it's actually going to be a little bit cheaper, and we'll have air conditioning at night now, which is, again, bringing up climate change. We didn't have AC out here at all for a while, and it was not that bad. But in the past couple of summers, not having air conditioning at night, so we have it during the day with the solar panels, but solar panels don't work at night. So we don't have it at night, and it's becoming quite unbearable. So we kind of struggled with that for a good week. We were like, we're off grid, like we can't get connected to the grid. That's not our thing. But financially, and just like health-wise, it feels like a really good decision. And we'll still be off grid for most of the year, but we'll have this supplemental grid power to help us with our air conditioning, which I think will allow more guests to stay here in summer, and it's a wonderful investment for this property, honestly.
You're describing you and Eugene moving out to a remote piece of land, bringing on solar panels, digging the plumbing, the rainwater. This is a lot of work. Can you tell me, were there any times that you just thought, okay, I want to give up? Like, this is too hard. This thing broke. This isn't working. We can't figure this out. I just want to give up and move back to Austin and rent an apartment at the Domain. Tell me, like, were there any big challenges and how did you handle them?
Yes, it does get very, very hard. And I'll go more into that. But no, neither one of us have ever said we would want to move back to the city. This summer has been the first summer. Before we knew we were going to get connected to the grid, this summer we were thinking like, are we going to be able to be here in this changing weather? Because it's not only the summers that are getting hotter, the winters are actually getting colder for us, which is another challenge because you've got a lot of pipes freezing and damage everywhere and that sort of thing. So this summer we were like, you know what? I'm not sure how long we will be able to stay here. And I think we still have that feeling of like, you know what? Maybe we'll do this for 10 or 20 years, but if the climate actually gets unbearable and dangerous, because our neighbors had a wildfire out here about a month ago that got really close to our property. Things are changing and shifting, and if the time came where it got too hard, we would leave. But in the day-to-day challenges, it's just the same, I think, as challenges that other people have in their lives. Like my sister is a city girl. She lives in Austin. She works for this company, and she tells me about the stresses of her life, and to me it sounds unbearable and would make me want to do what I did, which is be like, oh, I got to get out to the country. I can't handle that. So no, we both still very much want to be here, and it's a challenging way of life, but I think that, like I'm saying, like other people's ways of life is also challenging, but just in a different way. And then wake up the next day and either start over or say, you know what, today let's just stay inside and like watch something on our phone or we don't have a TV, but on our computer. Let's just stop for today.
Yeah, I think you're the perfect person to be running this grid sustainable retreat center. Can you just tell me what a day in the life for you looks like?
Man, I have actually tried to because my mom asked me, she's like, you say you're busy all the time, but what are you actually doing? So I've tried before to write it down, but I got too busy with everything I was doing. But yeah, I mean, if we have people in the cabin, then, we have to flip that. If we have people in the cabin and Airstream, then half my day is flipping and doing laundry. We hang our laundry up to dry when the weather's nice, and it dries a lot faster. So it's that whole rigmarole of cleaning, and then, oh, you forgot one towel, so you have to walk 5 minutes to get the towel, and then, so a lot of back and forth. And then it really depends on what project we're working on. Like right now, we're trying to get this treehouse finished. So today it was, oh, I'm excited to go grout the tile in the bathroom. And then I get all my supplies and I start to grout, and then I realize the grout is staining the tile. So I have to quit, and then okay, I have to seal the tile first, and okay, well, let me move on to something else. Okay, these cabinet doors need to be painted, let me paint these, or, it's just whatever needs to be done. I have chickens, so I give them fresh water every morning in the summer because they need it. We have 5 cats that really like to go on hikes, so if we don't feel super pressed to get started for the day, we'll usually take them on a little walk in the mornings. But 6 o'clock is usually our quitting time. By 6, we're take showers and start figuring out dinner and just relaxing for the rest of the night. And we didn't used to do that. We used to work till sunset for years. And then slowly, somehow, this 6 o'clock thing happened, and it's really nice. So it's oh, 6 o'clock, okay, done. Feels good to have that boundary for sure.
Do you have any plans to build any other units after the treehouse, or is that the final one?
I have demanded that we have to stop for a little bit because I just want to do other things that are really important to me. Building has been important so that we can, get this income thing going. But, I feel like first and foremost, I want to be good stewards of this land where we live. So there's a lot of land projects that need to happen. We need to be doing things to try to make sure that the water stays on our land when it rains, and just all these things. I want to work on my garden more and figure that out a little bit better because gardening out here is really tough. So I want to stop building for the foreseeable future and just do these other creative and important projects.
You need to check out Marlena's space, Marlena and Eugene's space, because it is so beautiful. Marlena, tell people where they can find you.
You can find me at Hill Country Nature Retreat everything.com, on Instagram, Facebook. I guess that's it really. But yeah, Hill Country Nature Retreat.
And make sure to check this out if you've been wanting to get out of the city, if you want to see what it's like to experience off-grid living. Marlena's place is so, so beautiful. And I know Craig and I cannot wait to get out there. I told Craig we were going to be on the podcast today, and he was like, oh, I cannot wait to listen to this episode. He's so curious about what y'all have been doing. And we're so inspired by how much you've done yourself, how much you've just really learned and taught yourself just through sounds like YouTube and friends. So we're both really inspired and so thankful for your time. Marlena, anything else? Any last minute advice considering doing something similar to this?
I think kind of what we talked about a few times is looking at the bigger picture, but not getting overwhelmed by it and just starting little bit by little bit and always remembering what your goal is. Because the more that you build and the more that you do, the busier that you'll be. So really just coming back to can I slowly do what I want to do so that I can live a non-stressful life?
All right, Marlena, thank you so much for joining us today. If you like this episode, please make sure to send it to a friend. You can also comment below and tell me what you liked. I love hearing from you. I hope you'll have a great week, and I will see you in our next episode where we're going to continue our creative wealth building series. All right, y'all, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.